Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine.
And this is Bonnie again, taking tea
Yay!
with Catherine.
Yes, Bonnie is in town again, and we have been doing all the book things and the tea things and the other things. And I am drinking sleepy time tea, and Bonnie is.
Rooibos wedding chai from Alice's Teacup, I
That's
think.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've been having some good tea times and again good reading
right, right.
times. But I thought we'd do a thing because she's with me today, so we do a little combined wrap up or book discussion. Mainly because I haven't been reading that much lately, which doesn't mean I'm not reading. I'm not just not as much, and I've not been finishing much lately. So I thought, well, let's just combine our reading forces and have a discussion. So mainly we were going to talk about our Victober reading. I still have some books going, so I'm not particularly concerned that I haven't finished them all. But the only one I finished was Man and Wife, which I was reading with others. It was a group read, Man and Wife by Wilkie Collins. And so far, this is the third book I read by Wilkie Collins, and it was a hit for me. So far, he's one of my favorite writers of the Victorian era, or at least he's fast becoming. I think so. I'm pretty excited about that because it gives me something to look forward to and reading more. But mainly why I liked Man and Wife was because it was kind of fast paced. It had its moments where it slowed down a little bit. It was based a lot on the marriage laws of Britain, especially Scotland, and how certain little things that happen can really mess up some people if someone was going to use a technicality. And I'm not going to get into spoilers, but yeah, there are some people who get themselves in a little bit of trouble marital wise and they have to find a way out of it, and some people who are real pieces of work. And I'm like I said, no spoilers except for the fact that basically justice is done by the end of the book, and that is satisfying for
I
me.
love that.
Books that are kind of frustrating and then really messed up, I don't always like that unless the writing is just so perfectly beautiful. But this was well done, and I totally recommend it, especially if you want a book that goes fast. I say that goes fast, but it doesn't like feel rushed. It was just an enjoyable, quick moving book. Loving it.
Yeah, and I actually want to read Man and Wife. It's not at my library, have not found it in any bookstores, so I'm on the hunt for that. I think you got it digitally, but
I did. I
I'm gonna.
actually got it out of the library, but I didn't like my edition very much, like the
Oh,
writing. So then I got the digital version, and it again,
right.
blue.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. I've only read two Wilkie Collins so far. The Moonstone, which I liked, wasn't 5 star, but it was pretty decent. And I read Law and the Lady, which I didn't honestly like. A lot of people on YouTube, BookTube, seem to love The Law and the Lady. I
I
was
haven't
not a
read that one,
fan
so
personally, but that's just my opinion. I wasn't a fan. But I still, from what I've heard of Man and Wife and from you and from others, I definitely want to read that. I don't, I'm not closely following all the prompts. I'm not actually a booktuber. I just am a guest and a watcher of booktube. But I did read one Victorian piece of literature in October, and that was Phineas Redux by Anthony Trollope. This was not the copy I read. Sorry, here's
that's okay.
this Phineas Redux by Anthony Trollope. It's the fourth book in the Palliser series by Anthony Trollope. I said Anthony Trollope. Anthony
We love
Trollope.
talking about
We
Anthony
love
Trollope.
him. We love him here. And I have completed the entire Barsetshire series and am now more than halfway through the Palliser series. Loving it. Phineas Redux was a solid Anthony Trollope. Definitely not somewhere you'd want to start with Anthony Trollope. There were definitely some slow-moving, boring parts where I was like, "Oh, come on, come now with the politics and the fox hunting," and I was like, especially the politics was just it slogged a bit. But overall, because I love Anthony Trollope so much, and because I was invested in the characters, and I enjoyed his writing, and then the second half does pick up pace-wise. I think I gave it 4 stars, because I enjoyed it that much.
Well, like if you were wanting to read the Palliser series, and for some reason you thought, I've heard not great things about Phineas Redux, would you be able to skip it and still make?
I don't know, because I think I haven't read. I'm now the next book I want to read is The Prime Minister, and I don't know if there's anything. You probably could, because even in Phineas Redux, he kind of Trollope summarizes some of the points and reminds you of things from Phineas Finn, and even from the Eustace Diamonds.
Oh.
Yes, some characters come back. So I thought that was nice that he did that, because it had actually been a couple of years since I had read the last book in the series, so it helped refresh my memory. But I mean, I would say if you're wanting to read the entire series, read it. Just you're gonna find some boring spots probably.
Wow.
You might find them boring like I did, and then, but overall, I still enjoyed it a lot. So that was my Victober, my participation in Victober. I also have a line.
Voctober.
I was wearing a hat all day today. I don't know if anyone's noticing that, but that's just me gonna say that. Put that out there.
It was a little cold out today.
One has hat line. Okay, but so what else did you want me to talk about? Anything?
Anything else you really have been enjoying reading the past like month or so?
Yes. I read Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I forget who the author was.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I have never read Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I've heard of it.
Very quick read, and it's
yeah,
it's almost a novella. Oh, it's James Hilton is the author. Oh. Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I really enjoyed that one. I read it it took me with like over 1 day or 2 days that I read it. It was less than 200 pages. A little sad. I mean, you're saying goodbye. It's an older character kind of going through his life. But it was interesting and I enjoyed it. I would recommend it.
Give it a shot one day.
What else did I recently read, I guess this is considered middle grade, All of a Kind Family Downtown. I don't know if that's middle grade. I think it's middle grade.
All right.
It's I don't have copies of it, but All of a Kind Family Downtown by Sydney Taylor. It's the second, I believe, in a series that was written in the mid-20th century, but it begins in the Edwardian period, but it's not in Britain, so I guess it's not, I don't know if you consider that Edwardian, because it's set in New York, the Lower East Side of New York, which was really interesting, about a Jewish family that living there. I really like this series. I feel like I'm rereading it because I think I read it as a child, but I just didn't remember a lot of it, so it's fun, really nice going back to it. On that note, I also was trying to reread the Nancy Drew series, because I read many of them. I don't think I read all of them, but I read many of them as a child. And recently, I think it was Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. Yeah, I love her channel, and she was suggesting, she was starting to read the Nancy Drew series, and I'm like, oh, let me also read along, because I love them. I enjoyed them as a kid. I read The Secret of the Old Clock, the first Nancy Drew book, and I almost DNF'd it, but I was like, no, let me just finish it. It was not the same as an adult perspective. I felt, no, I'm not going to continue with this series. I could understand why someone would enjoy it even as an adult. It's, retro and bring back, it could be cozy. But I just felt the characters were so one-dimensional.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy Drew's, everything she does is so perfect and she's so wonderful, and then the bad guys are so I mean, it's like
I hate when the bad guys are
yeah, you're just like, okay. And I mean, you knew exactly how everything was going to turn out. I mean, that might be something up some people's alley. They might love that, but I just was like, I need a little bit of dimension in my characters. I get
that. No, I get that. And I do think though it is worth a try sometimes to go back to old series, old books you read when you were younger, because it can be really, really rewarding. Sometimes just the memory of reading the books gives you a good childhood feeling, like of a good time. Right. And sometimes there are stories that hold up, and Nancy Drew might hold up for some people, but everybody's
just not for me. Not for me.
And look, mysteries, there are so many of them. So hey, if one doesn't work for you, there are others. I have found, and I know it's not particularly written for children or middle grade or whatever. But like Agatha Christie, I read a number of her books when I was younger. Me too. And then rereading them, they still hold up. There's things that are a little outdated, of course. Right. But the stories, the characters, the
interest level, the
bad guys are not always, they're a little surprising sometimes.
Right.
And so, I mean, I know Agatha Christie is just one of many writers, but I'm glad she still holds up. And
Right.
yeah.
And this All the Kind family, like I felt on a second reread. I didn't remember a lot of the details, but I'm enjoying it. Very cozy
Yeah.
read again. And also something along those lines. Any Ella Montgomery so far
Oh
that I've
yeah.
reread, I've really enjoyed. I love them as a kid, enjoying them as an adult. But yeah, Nancy Drew just didn't. Oh well, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm glad I tried rereading it because I was like, oh, curious to. I didn't remember a lot of it, and I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, I try. But now and then, currently, what I'm reading right now, I'm reading. I think going back to Victorian literature, I'm reading another Trollope. This is because I was traveling. I said, let me just bring one small book with me, like
Yeah.
physical, and it's An Eye for an Eye by Anthony Trollope. It's a really small
I want to
book.
read that.
I'm only in page 32. Loving it so far. It's a solid Trollope so far. It feels just so much like his writing. It's so that it's comfortable. It seems It's very interesting. So hopefully, it's interesting the views of the English towards the Irish so far that I'm. It's not good, but interesting.
It's history,
Right?
Hopefully,
Exactly.
history. But yeah. I mean, but I know you're enjoying it because we were on the subway today going back, and we had a little bit of our quiet reading time, and you could just like tell she was having that wonderful
Right.
Trollope happiness.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad because I was enjoying it too. I'm reading my Richard III biography, my latest one, and we were just having a chill time on the subway, despite the fact that the light was a little bit
I
dim
know
on
it
the
was.
subway.
Yeah, you're right.
Because well,
Right.
if that's the only thing I have to complain about on my train ride home.
No, it was a pretty comfortable ride.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think. Oh, one other book that I read in October that I gave 5 stars, surprisingly to myself, because when I got it from the library, the cover was just old and didn't look like much, but it's called The Eye of Love by Marjorie Sharp. So she was a writer in the mid 20th century in England. I like that time period also for women's writers. And I had read, I believe a year or so ago, Clooney Brown, which I'd heard talked about a bit on BookTube by her, and I liked it. It was okay. I liked it enough to try another book by her, but I was like, I think people like it a lot. I didn't like it that much. But then I read The Eye of Love recently, and it was a little silly in some spots. For some reason, it just hit like it was just so engaging to read. I just flew through it, and it was unexpectedly engaging. It's just about a story about kind of the way you view someone. Your eye of love can have such a different, like someone who may not seem like much of anything, or why would they find them so wonderful, but to someone with the eye of love, you can love them so much. And I felt the message of the story. It was really interesting, and it was, again, like I said, it was just a little silly, and it was from the point of view of a kid at some parts, and from the adults at other parts, and it was a nice read. I would recommend it. It was not some book that I've heard much talked about here,
right?
But yeah, The Eye of Love by Marjorie Sharp.
If I ever get a hold
of it, I enjoyed it a lot. A little funny, funny, cozy, interesting, and then. Yeah,
that sounds pretty good. I think Bonnie's been having a slightly more successful reading time than me recently, but that's okay. It shall be rectified soon.
I did read a C.J. Sansom book also in October.
Oh yes,
Heartstone, and I forget which number of the book, the Matthew Shardlake series set in Tudor England. Yes. This one was set during while Henry VIII is married to Catherine Parr,
his last wife.
Yeah, this is like the highest of my threshold for like miserable books. I think I find them to be a bit they're not light read. They're very interesting. I learned a lot of history.
Yeah.
But if you like Tudor history and if you like mysteries, I think you would really like C.J. Sansom books. That was another book I read in October and enjoyed.
I love that series. I finished reading it probably 2019. I can't remember. there was the last book that was called, oh my goodness, a rat. No, that's the book that's not real.
Lamentation. And
Um,
then Tombland.
Tombland. Thank you.
Tombland. Those are the two I have left. So
I'm so glad you remember that.
All right.
But that's the last book. There was a rumored book that was supposed to come out, but no one believes that's going to happen. The author has been dealing with illness and probably won't come out with anything. And I've just kind of accepted that. But that series, as far as mystery series and historical fiction too, is one of my very favorites. And yes, it can be a little traumatizing at times,
especially the book Revelation. I think that was my least favorite. It was very it was interesting and
intense.
I did intense. I didn't figure out who done it. You know, the books I'm always like, oh, whoa, you know what? I usually do. I rarely solve the mystery in the books, and I learn a lot about that time period. But yeah, they're dark and intense, I'll be honest, but they're very immersive. You feel like you're in Tudor England. It's really interesting.
Yes,
especially Tudor, well, not only in London, but they go around different areas of England. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So obviously our reading tastes pretty much align because we both like the Victorian stuff and the Tudor books and etc.
Yeah.
But
I don't read as much nonfiction as Catherine, although I did start a nonfiction for Nonfiction November. Usually, because again, like I said, I'm a guest on BookTube, so if there's a readathon that I like, I'll maybe pick one book for that month. So I'm reading. I started a book about Catherine Howard.
Oh yes,
I'm still like in Tudor mode. So
yes, I know the book she's talking about, and it's a great book. I think I talked about it last year. I'm not sure. But
Young and Damned and Fair, I think it's called.
Gareth Russell, is that
Garrett
right?
Russell, yes. I have it at home.
Yes, there's other books of him by him that I want to read also. He wrote a book about, is he the one who wrote a book about the Queen Mother, I think, and the Hampton Court? Anyway.
Yeah.
I've got so many books to read.
Yeah, so that'll be my November. Anyway, but that's my current reads. If you cared to hear, hope you enjoyed it.
Well, I enjoy it, and I love talking to you out there in BookTube about reading. But I have for more years than I can even talk about. I've been talking to Bonnie about what we've been reading, and she's been talking to me. So I love to combine this. It's just it's so much fun.
And tea.
Now Freddie's over here looking at me with the stink eye, like he's gonna knock over the camera if we don't feed him
Freddie
soon.
More.
So we're gonna wrap up now.
Okay.
But this has been lovely. So this is Bonnie.
It's Bonnie, and I'm taking tea with Catherine.
So
hope you have a tea.
Yes.
And book-filled
day.
day.
Bye.
Bye.